Okay, time for another Project Zomboid video. So at the end of last year, Project Zomboid released a massive patch to the game, and it pretty much made all my previous videos on Project Zomboid outdated. The info is no longer relevant, so I figured it was time to make a new one. We're going to go through CDDA and see how we go. So the first thing to mention before diving right in is that this is an unstable build, as can be seen pretty clearly when looking at their version history. They are working to patch it. I think we're now up to 42.7. They're making little tweaks and adjustments pretty continuously, but the build is still one that needs to be opted into because it is full of glitches and bugs and all that sort of stuff that comes with a pre-release like this. We are going to be deliberately avoiding the use of any exploits involving glitches, and we're also going to try and gloss over bugs as much as possible. I mean, to be fair, the worst one you're probably going to encounter is the frozen zombies like this, where they just die on the spot rather than falling over, and it's not going to interrupt your gameplay. Like, the aesthetics of the game can be ruined a little bit, but you can still feel what the game's going to be like when the real version is released in however long it is now. Okay, so jumping into it, there are really two parts to surviving CDDA. There is the first, say, 2 days where you're in Moldra and everything is going to crap. And then there is the long-term survival of how do you make it through the winter, through the year, stay fed, etc, etc, etc. Most of your build picks are going to be for surviving in the long term. If you start with a point in tailoring, for example, it's not going to help you survive the first day or two. It's just going to make your life easier after the initial survival. Whereas things like, say, high strength, high fitness, they might help you at the beginning. So while it very much comes down to personal choice as to what you find useful and what you don't, there are 4 skills that I'd like to touch on first before diving in. So this is my build here. You're welcome to pause and have a look through later. The first skill that I want to talk about is slow metabolism. So this was overweight previously, and in previous versions I strongly recommended overweight because, well, you lose a lot just running around winter by what you're eating. In the new patch, it is perfectly possible to have a diet of like pure maple syrup and still be losing weight. Like, it is really, really hard to gain weight compared to what it used to be. So I cannot recommend this negative enough. It is almost mandatory in my mind. The second one I'd like to talk about is strength. So if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that I used to go no strength because I didn't see it as relevant. I now do in this patch because there are 3 things that affect muscle strain, which is something that swinging weapons gives you. 1 is your strength, 2 is your skill with the weapon, and 3 is the weight of the weapon. We can't really control our skill with the weapon early game. I'm going a burger flipper so that I get +1 short blade. There are plenty of kitchen knives and meat cleavers and all that sort of stuff around, which I plan on using. I'll carve some steaks if I have to. But yeah, going high strength means that if we're forced into using a weapon that's not from our preferred set, then we're not going to be completely screwed. We can pick up a rock off the ground, which is now a thing that you can do, and use that to somewhat decent effect if we need to. The third skill I'd like to talk about is keen hearing, and for this one I think maybe a bit of a demonstration is in order. So here is a character with keen hearing with a zombie coming up behind him, and you can see the number of tiles that the zombie appears in your knowledge radius. It's fairly large. This is quite comparable to what the old Project Zomboid patches were like. So continuing on, this is the same situation but with no hearing, no keen hearing, no bad hearing. So again, it's pretty much what you'd expect. The reason for why I'm doing this will become clear in just a second. So whether it's diagonal, whether it's a straight line, you get about the same radius around you of warning. All is well. Here's a character with hard of hearing, and you'll notice that there's almost no difference between hard of hearing and no change to your hearing. This caught me by surprise when I was testing out new stuff in the patch. It's definitely worth knowing, but the really interesting one is here is a character with deaf, and as you can see, the radius behind you, I expected there to be no radius. It's actually comparable to just having normal hearing. Like, it's, as far as I can tell, it's in fact the same radius. And this is interesting because deaf gives you a lot of points. Yes, there are other things which hearing can give you, like knowledge that the helicopter is around, or there's a zombie banging on a door that you haven't seen shaking or something. But the upshot of all of this is that when you're designing your character, you want to take some kind of hearing. Now, whether you take good hearing, bad hearing, no hearing, the only wrong choice is none of the above. And just one more detail on hearing that they've changed in this new patch. Now a zombie behind a tree or a wall or something like that, you won't actually hear it or detect it in your vision radius. You might hear snarls and growls and stuff, but you won't actually be able to know exactly where it is. And this is hugely important for zombies jumping out at you from the sides. So you can see here, it looks completely clear, but actually there was a zombie behind that tree, and there was no way to see him except for when I walk past a tree. I have now been completely sold in the new patch by eagle eyes. I never thought I was going to be sold by that. I always used to think it was a complete waste. But now if you step past a tree, if you step past a doorway, eagle eyes, that extra bit of sideways vision, is what's actually going to allow you to see an incoming zombie and react in time. Anyway, you might be sold on eagle eyes, you might not, but it's at least worth mentioning that it is no longer the instant avoid that it used to be. It is now, in my mind, a must. Opinions will obviously vary. Okay, so now we've gone through the build stuff, it's time to look at the Zomboid heat map and have our plan. So let's go have a look at Moldra. You can see they've changed the heat map layout quite a lot. Roads are now a lot safer, while neighbourhoods are a lot more dangerous. We've pretty much got two choices. This farmhouse is just too many. It used to be the go-to spot for the start of the game. I find this is just too many to deal with now, considering the chance of the farmhouse being ransacked is incredibly high. So we're starting over here. We can either go off to the right and through the neighbourhoods on the way out of Moldra, or we can sort of cut through, there's a pond here, cut through the left and stop off at the bar and the warehouse on the way out of Moldra. We have to get out of Moldra because, one, the helicopter is coming in about a week and we don't want to be in a really busy area when it hits. But much more importantly too, the fire that you now have to get away from at the start of CDDA, it seems to be so much more vicious now. Like, I'll be in Moldra and a couple of neighbourhoods away a week afterwards and go to bed one night, and in the middle of the night the fire will rage through the house. I've played quite a few games before I decided, right, I can't stay in Moldra, where you'd go to bed and you'd wake up and your bed is surrounded by fire, you get up in the morning, you're burning to death, and that's the end of your run. It's only rained out of, I would say, I've probably played 3 or 4 dozen run-throughs of CDDA now, fine-tuning my strategy. I would say out of all those run-throughs, it has rained twice in the opening couple of days in order to put out the fire. So we're leaving Moldra. We'll come back in spring when it's raining. We need to get somewhere else. And the two best ways, out to the right or out to the left. Out to the left has much higher rates of food and weapons, because the bar and the warehouse, that's pretty much what they have, food and weapons, chips and drink and hammers and such. But out to the right has more clothing and a much higher chance of a needle and thread, which is the way that I'm going to go, because if you can get a needle and thread early, then, well, that makes CDDA that much easier. So once we leave, we're going to follow the road. There's nothing really out this way, so we are going to cut across. Now let's just pan out. We are going to cut across up here, all the way up here, and we're going to run around this farmland. Very small scatterings of zombies around houses, and we're going to do this until the helicopter has passed. So the earliest I've seen the helicopter is 6 days. The latest I've seen the helicopter, I believe, was 11 or 12 days after the start of the game, so there's a random element to it, but it'll take you a good week to search out all these houses anyway. And then our home base, or at least the base that I plan on going to, is up here, just at the very tip of West Point, and that way we can fight, practice our combat as we battle our way into town, trying to get to the school and the bookstore, which is about here from memory. And if we don't feel like that, we can always just run around this area foraging for food and berries, because this area has no zombies and roads and is just really nice for foraging. And we can work our way to battling up to this place on the edge of the water. But just as a heads up, like, it might not look like much, but this little patch of red there translates to roughly 100 zombies. So it's no joke. If you're looking at, I'll just go clear out the middle of town, really be wary. Like, to do that sort of thing, you would need, I don't even know how many shotguns and or just a lot of time. And so I like starting down. One day I'll get down to here and then back up and sleep for the night. And the next day maybe I push to here and then back up and sleep for the night, and so on and so forth. But yes, this is. I was quite surprised. 100 zombies is no joke. Especially the first time I went there, I was expecting to just kill a half dozen zombies like previous patches and set up base. That is not to be anymore. So when you're looking at places to choose on the heat map, and I do suggest you look carefully at the heat map for your spot of choice, do be wary of the deeper shades of red. So, for instance, you're not going to Louisville for a base anymore because, well, the numbers are just ludicrous. The loot might be better, but realistically, it's not going to happen in even your first year of survival in CDDA. You'd still be struggling to get the materials to bust into Louisville. Okay, so now we've covered the build, all the bits that I wanted to, and our plan of escape and why we need to go that way. So let's dive into an actual run through and see what happens. Okay, so there's always a little bit of a random element at the start of CDDA. Sometimes you're completely surrounded by fire, sometimes, and there's just nothing you can do. In this start, I'm almost completely surrounded. I'll quickly loot what I can out of the cupboards. One little trick is before you start removing the lodged glass, wait for a fire to burn out and then go step on the burnt out square. It's much less likely to catch fire again than one of the squares that hasn't been touched. They're much more likely to catch fire. So this just gives you the time to get the glass out, which you need to do. Ideally, I would go find a curtain and rip it to shreds and bandage it up and stop my bleeding. In this run, there were no curtains. As you could see, I was a little bit out of luck there. That's okay. One of the advantages of going to the neighbours' houses is they'll have curtains. Somewhere, someone will have one. I'm not really worried about that. Mailboxes and garbage bins are worth searching. You never know what you're going to find. Here's a magazine. That's great. I'll learn some skills later. Garbage bins have garbage bags, surprise, surprise, which can have almost anything in them. You can get jackets, you can get food that's still edible, etc., etc. Actually, it's the garbage bag that we want primarily. So we can make a make-do backpack out of sheets from a window. But that plus our inventory is not going to be enough to carry all the stuff that we get out of Moldra to wherever it is we're setting up base. So an offhand bag of some kind is, I think, extremely important, and garbage bags are just the easiest of them to find. If you probably know this already if you've played CDDA a couple of times or even just any of the new patch stuff, but a lot of houses now are ransacked. This is why I didn't bother to check all of that last house. Like, I checked the kitchen for a can opener, some random food. Maybe there was a body on the floor or something. But I wasn't going to go check every room and every cupboard because it's pretty much guaranteed to just be empty. Like, if you find anything, it's not going to be much at all. This place, you can tell a ransacked place, by the way, because the door is left open and there are piles of rubbish and mouse droppings and all that sort of stuff lying around. This place, however, had a closed door, so it's fine. I should search every spot. And while, yes, I am still bleeding out and losing health, other things are important as well. And here I've just found a Santa hat and some pants, Christmas pants, whatever. That'll keep me a little bit warmer, fight off the hypothermia. And yes, I'm going to remember before I leave this place to rip a curtain up. Although I nearly didn't, actually, because it is easy to forget when you're focusing on other things. Another thing to note, I guess, is in the ransacked house, yes, it had curtains which I could have torn off the window and ripped up, but all the windows were broken, so the curtains, to get to them, I would have had to stand on broken glass, and that's just an absolute nightmare. Like, yes, okay, you get to bandage up your bleeding groin, and you can probably bandage up your feet afterwards as well, but you'll be hobbling for so long. And speed is important in Zomboid. You don't want to be slower than the zombies, if at all possible. You want to always be able to walk away from them and leave them in your rearview mirror. Okay, so my guy's fixed up his immediate problems now. He has bandaged his deep wound, and he's got a little bit of clothing. He's still using just a butter knife, but that's okay. Ransacked shed is worth searching. You never know what, there might be one item for stepping into a room and out again that's worth the effort. This run through, by the way, it's all about to start going to absolute crap. And I actually chose this run through deliberately just to show you that even if things aren't going your way, you can still stay on top of things. Like it's, I'm going to lose track of the number of zombies that happen to come my way in a very short amount of time here. Here they are just flooding out the window. The stomping trick that we used to use in previous patches, while it's still good, it's not as good. As you can see, trying to keep track of all these zombies here, one actually managed to get up and now I have to fight him off, and I'm still standing on other zombies, which that's just a bit of a pain. But it is still the best way to deal with large numbers of zombies when you don't have a lot of weapon skill or weapons or anything like that. Get them to trip over fences, windows, whatever low sorts of trip obstacles you can find to put in their way. And yeah, you're still able to deal with relatively large hordes as long as you're a little bit careful. Here's my guy finally getting some basics, so he's now going to have shoes, so he doesn't have to worry about broken glass anymore. He's got a little bit more clothing. Off to deal with a zombie at the door. By the time they're banging on the door, by the way, it's too late to go to the window and call them over. They'll just keep on banging on the door. And any zombie, banging on doors, windows, fences, grates, whatever they're banging on, it adds to your stress level majorly nowadays, like really, really fast. And stress makes you A, worse at combat, and B, leads to unhappiness very quickly. And unhappiness leads to slower swing times and more time to pick up items and organize them in your inventory, and it's extremely bad. So while in old versions it might have been tempting to leave zombies just banging on doors while you loot out the house and get some fatigue back or whatever it is you're doing, nowadays that is not ideal. Now you want to deal with any zombies banging on doors, and this makes the concept of Louisville that much more dangerous. Just running around a normal neighborhood, you can test it out for yourself. Just walk along ignoring all the zombies and walking past all the houses yelling and getting their attention of the ones inside, and you'll notice that your stress goes to maximum almost immediately. It doesn't take many zombies banging on doors for your stress to just be outrageous. And this is just something to keep in mind, A, when you're playing, and also B, when you're choosing a base location. You don't really want somewhere where every time you walk out of your apartment building of the morning, for instance, the zombies are rattling on the windows upstairs and just sending you into a panic before you even start your day. This is another advantage, by the way, of neighborhood raiding, is that even though I don't have a good container to put water in yet, there are plenty of bathtubs and stuff. I can stay hydrated while looking for even a pot, or a saucepan is fine. Saucepan, by the way, used to be the easiest bang for buck for good water storage. Nowadays, the plastic bottles, which you can quite often find in garbage bins, are probably the most convenient. They weigh between 0.1 to 0.3, depending on what the bottle is made of, and they hold a litre of water. You can get water pouches which you wear, like you attach it to the bottom of your backpack or something, and they're really convenient, but it'll take a while before we get one of them. Like, we're not guaranteed to get one of them anywhere near the start of the game. Whereas a plastic bottle or a glass bottle, I would be disappointed if I didn't find one before I left Moldra. Just while we're waiting to move on to the next house and my guy's gearing up, another little note, because I picked up my first key there. It is worth noting that in Zomboid now, keys have weight to them. Not a lot, but enough so that your keyring is going to fill up before too long. What I like to do is have my first keyring as just the first place of the game that I was in. So I was in, you start in Moldra. My first keyring on my chain I'll label as keyring 1, and it's for everything from Moldra 2, and I'll remember when I ran out of space on the keyring, and that's where the second keyring comes in, etc, etc. And I like to keep my vehicle keys separate. This is a recent quality of life discovery that I've made since the run through that you're watching here, but having all the vehicle keys on the one chain means that if you're running around to a car, you don't have to go, well, where is this car parked, where is it on my keychain, which one am I taking with me today, etc., etc. I just always carry my vehicle keychain around with me just in case. And yes, so once I'm leaving my base, I only carry the keychain with me, which is relevant to the area that I'm going to be exploring before I return to base that day. Taking a quick rest there, because always good to be in tip-top form leading on to the next place or the next house or the next area if you can. They've got rid of, for some reason, the rest bar above your head when you're sitting in a chair and just going rest or something like that. And this actually makes it quite difficult to know when to stop. So I'm playing with 0 fatigue as a character, so I need to rest quite a lot. I find that once I hit fatigued, a half-hour rest means I'm not wasting my time. I'm not at full capacity and just sitting there doing nothing. Opinions will vary on the sort of time that you want to spend resting, but it has also changed now. If you actually just stand still on the spot doing nothing, like you're not searching zombie corpses, you're not doing anything else like that, that will actually recover your fatigue as well. So in those fights where you've got a horde of zombies trickling in one at a time, very slowly over the course of however long, if you fight one zombie, instead of practicing your nimble or looking around or all that sort of stuff, which you may have done in previous versions, it's now actually quite optimal to just stand completely still for as long as possible until the zombie's almost on top of you, then activate your nimble combat stance again and go for it, and rinse repeat. And this just means that when you're fighting waves of zombies, you can fight for longer. It's one of the tricks which I pretty much learned by necessity by having 0 fatigue. I realize the meta out there in internet land is to go maximum fatigue. I find that not only a complete waste because of the number of points that takes. That's a 20-point difference between maximum fatigue and minimum fatigue. But if you recall, I said that we want to take the prone to gaining weight negative, they call it, but let's call it a perk because that's what it really is. That it does come with -1 fatigue. So it seems even worse bang for buck in my mind to go, okay, I'm going to go +4 to my fatigue and then get 2 more points and go, okay, it's actually only +3, because that's taking you down below the threshold, which I think would be worth it. Not that I think it's worth it anyway, but it certainly puts a dent in the bang for buck value that you're getting out of it. So while there's actually only 2 houses left to search out in Moldra before we make our dash and escape, I'm going to hit fast forward because again, I chose this run because things go badly. There's just almost a constant stream of fights. So let me just hit 4 times speed here and we'll zip through. Hopefully this works. In a previous video I tried putting 4 times speed on and it threw the sound out of whack. So apologies if there's some funky sound effects thrown in the mix here, but I think I figured that out last time, so hopefully all is well. So one reason that we're getting so many fights here, eagle-eyed watchers may have noticed as I came into this little complex with the house surrounded by almost a complete fence, I was actually yelling as well as coughing and spluttering. I was yelling and standing and trying to attract zombie attention. This is because the zombies in the area, they're in the area anyway, I'm going to have to deal with them at some point. Dealing with them in this environment where I can back up as far as I want and I'm not going to back up into another horde of zombies, like if another horde of zombies hears the fight that I'm doing or hears combat, they're going to have to walk and come in through the entrance that all the rest of the zombies are coming in through anyway. So it's a really good chance to, I realize we're fighting, but it's still taking a breather in the scheme of things. A nice safe way where all the zombies are going to be coming from just the one direction. And also this is a good showcase of why I went for bladed weapons. So if you've tried a couple of runs in B42 yourself, you'll have been finding muscle fatigue and fatigue in general to be a pain. Like it's really quite the change from previous patches. But as you can see, like fitness aside, I've got no fitness, and but I'm keeping an eye on that by standing still whenever I can while the zombies are still approaching. But the actual muscle strain, you'll notice I didn't get any. That's a combination of the high strength and the low weapon weight. Yes, I have some skill in short blade as well, and I'm doing what I can to get to level 2 short blades as quickly as possible. I've been using butter knives, paring knives, pretty much any bladed weapon that I can find in the kitchen, so I've just been using that every chance I get. They last a surprisingly long time with maintenance 1, not forever obviously, but long enough that we can certainly do some serious damage to the hordes. But yes, it's the muscle strain, which, okay, I've got a little bit there, it's starting to kick in, but it's not nearly as bad as what a comparable survivor would have that had gone something well, like, say, a long blunt is a prime example. Especially if you were to use a long blunt in one hand, the weight of the weapon distributed over one hand instead of two is, yeah, enough to give you pretty much instant muscle strain. As a little side note, by the way, there's my guy checking out the basement to the building here. That basement isn't actually on any of the maps that have been released yet. The maps are by no means up to date. There are plenty of things to find. Basements are in nearly every house with a staircase. There's a staircase going down as well. Worth knowing about because often dryers and washing machines have fresh clothes in them, which very useful at the start of the game. But it's not the only thing which you can find in the Zomboid game, which is nowhere to be found on the maps. So a prime example is if I were to go south, by south I mean down and left, from the opening area that we start in, go past the small market or the shopping centre and continue through the trees. On the other side of the trees, before I hit the area of Moldra with neighbourhoods and such, there's actually a used car yard or a scrap yard, I don't know what you'd call it. There's a whole lot of wrecked cars, and it's not on any of the maps that I've looked at either, so there is plenty to explore. I have been tempted by going to the car yard and searching out the boots and living off screwdrivers and tyre arms and other things that you can find in cars. Tempting, but it's just not as safe as going either left or right from our starting location and out of Moldra. And also, once we go down further into that direction, we're sort of stuck going that direction because the fire's behind us. And yeah, we don't want to push back through the direction that the fire's coming from because, well, that's just asking to get us killed. The risk to reward ratio is not there. Okay, so a situation that I found myself in here which is not ideal. I'm fighting in the dark. You'll notice that I'm keeping the fence nice and close to me so that I can jump over and stomp some heads should I need to. A good trick for this situation is to make sure that you know where the lightly coloured paths are. So you can see one just on the left here, which I'm probably going to run to in a second actually. And that just means that when a shambling zombie is coming your way in the dark, you can see its outline and fight it easily. A really good place for this is that isolated house that I was luring zombies to not 5 minutes ago. It also has paths which are particularly light and easy to see incoming zombies on. At the moment, I'm just trying desperately to loot the bodies before I make the dash to the lightly coloured area. And now I'm here, I'm being a bit greedy and searching out cars, which is, I mean, I could leave it for daylight hours, but hey, it's still early in the game, a little bit of greed never hurt. And I am actually quite confident in my fighting skills. Like, as you can see, the zombies are still coming at a steady pace, but by alternating between killing them with blades and stomping their heads when they trip over the fence, you'll notice that my muscle strain is still perfectly reasonable. Like, yes, my fatigue is getting really quite bad now. In the red, I think that's something like 90% reduced damage that I'm doing, which is incredibly substantial, but again, the zombies are still coming. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to do the best I can, make sure that my attacks are all accurate and that I'm actually getting their heads when I'm stomping them. Yes, this is, again, things can go badly, but it's not the end of the world. The fact that zombies just keep on coming into the night, as you can see, just don't lose your head, stay on top of things. When you get a chance, retreat back to the isolated house or the house with a fence around it, whatever it's called. And yeah, this is a much better place to do your fighting. And also, assuming that it's not completely ransacked, or even if it is in fact, it's still a decent place for a rest because we cleared this area during the day. The chance of zombies wandering in here is far reduced. You've got to sleep somewhere for the first night in Moldra, assuming you don't just make it out in the first day, which is another option, of course. But you've got to sleep somewhere, and barring the discovery of a car down the road out of the way in a nice little safe spot, the next best place you're going to get to sleep is this little tucked away house. You probably can't see what I'm doing in the dark there, but I'm trying to sit down and have a rest. Every now and then a zombie bangs on the door and I have to get up and answer it and deal with it, but trying to rest just to make sure that I'm not absolutely wrecked with my combat skills. As you can see, even in fast forward, I'm taking quite a while to stomp their heads now. What can you do? And here, because I haven't managed to find a needle and thread yet, which is par for the course, really. Like, the chances are better in this area, but not amazing. I'm sitting around, I'm organizing my items, I'm practicing my nimble, I'm pretty much just waiting for my tiredness to hit ridiculously tired so I can actually get to sleep. Before then, if you haven't found a needle and thread, you're in too much pain to sleep when you're not ridiculously tired, which, again, just one of those things you have to deal with in the first day or two of survival. My guy wouldn't normally go so far out of the house, by the way, but he was trying to track down a sound that he couldn't pinpoint. I wasn't keen or brave enough to leave the safety of my lightly coloured path, so I figured, okay, I'll just go back and leave it till morning. If it's an emergency, it'll knock at the door. Okay, so managed to get a proper night's sleep, or at least a decent night's sleep. Fatigue is back to appropriate levels, and most of the zombies, I'm hoping at this stage, have been cleared over the course of yesterday and the night. That zombie there, by the way, was just a little glitch that was stuck in the wall all night, making me panicked. You can see my stress is maximum. That's the second moodle down there. That's the thing I was talking about earlier, where a single zombie banging on a fence will send your stress into just extreme levels. You can imagine what it's like in a city type situation. Like, this is just one zombie on a fence. Okay, so anyway, we're up to the last house to clear out, and as per everything else with this run, the house is full of zombies. Window trick again for the easiest way to deal with them, then deal with the one at the door. Fighting zombies, by the way, if you were paying careful attention or have in fact looked at my damage, you might notice that I got scratched on my hand at one point. That happened in the previous house. I was going down the stairs, the zombies were coming up the stairs. I didn't want to get backed into a corner, so I jumped the staircase down and ran outside. Not the move that you want to do in a perfect run through, but desperate times, desperate measures. It's better to risk the jump and definitely get to a clear location than it is to be backed into a corner. That was just actually some bad play. I should have made sure that the surrounding area was a little bit safer before going upstairs, but again, a little bit of greed early in the game is not such a bad thing. You need to push it a little bit in the opening days to get a good start, to set yourself up for the remainder of the month, season, year. And again, we're racing against the clock in Moldra because the fire is closing in on us. Like, if I were to pan out, I don't know if I'm going to or not in this run through, but if I were to pan out, you would almost certainly be able to see the fire in the distance closing in on us. It just steadily comes at a set pace, just burning everything in its path. And yes, we need to get the loot before that hits us and get out of town far enough away that the game pauses the expansion of the fire, so that we can come back one day when it's raining and we'll drive past in spring or something and put all the fires out. That way all the loot isn't lost. So here I am in the final bathroom, and I get a little bit lucky. I get a sewing kit with a needle and thread. Huzzah, that's going to set my run up for the future. I thoroughly feel like I've earned it after the number of zombies that I've killed in this small time frame already. Here's another basement that I'm going into. Again, not on any maps that I've seen. Make sure you're exploring as you play through, because otherwise you're going to miss all sorts of useful stuff. And now there's a couple of zombies left, I believe, which are just the stragglers. Either really slow ones or ones which, for some reason or other, haven't been attracted to all the noise I've been making over the last 2 days. We'll deal with them and head out of town. So we're just going to wind up by talking about a couple of things for surviving the long term once you actually get to some relative point of safety. So the main one to consider is your food supply. So in previous CDDA runs, I was a big proponent of fishing net traps. They were amazing, easy to get relatively, at least compared to what this patch is doing. And you could just live on them for absolutely ages, and when you needed to put on some weight, you could just drink some alcohol, live on a diet of bourbon for a couple of weeks from the bourbon distillery or something, and you were back to being super tubby, and then you could just go back to living on bait fish again. One, the bait traps are no longer as easy to get. Two, their food supply is pretty random. Like, you'll get crayfish sometimes, other times you'll get tadpoles. It's all over the shop, and now that putting on weight is so much harder, I'm not really a fan of it. The meta online that I've looked at seems to talk about getting your own cow, getting milk out of it, building a butter churn, making a whole lot of butter and using that to put on weight. I mean, That's fine in theory, but realistically, in CDDA, getting a cow and looking after it, it comes with its own set of problems. It locks you into one location, so once you've done all the combat in that area, maybe you can survive, but having to go back to feed your cow and milk your cow every day and make butter, it's not really appealing to me. Like, that's not really a fun idea. I like to push into new areas filled with zombies, etc., etc., get new loot, look for new stuff. Farming is not really a good way to go. While there is an ample supply of seed packets and stuff to go actually starting your farm off with, it's winter, and so of course hard to get a farm going, not to mention again it locks you into place and you're sort of stuck with, okay, now this is my permanent location, and is it really a zombie survival game anymore? I have gone for foraging. This is actually another reason that I've gone a burger flipper. They have a fairly unique bonus to their foraging in that they get a 30% chance to find fast food. Chance or radius, I'm sorry, I should look into that more. I'm not actually sure on that offhand. But combined with the bonus you get when hungry and foraging, which is 50%, that means that when I want to go put on weight, I can go around foraging in towns and actually find chips and things like that, which I can scoff at a rate of knots and hopefully fight the weight loss, at least to a better degree than most. So anyway, foraging is my go-to. It's also incredibly easy at the start of the game because there are berries just, oh, I'd like to eat for the day. I'll go and forage for a couple of hours and yeah, get plenty of berries. This is me, as you can see, apart from crossing the freeway, which I play it very cautiously. I crouch, I sneak through. The rest of the time, I'm actually just foraging along. I think by the time that I get to the farmlands, I'm already foraging level 3, pushing level 4. This is with Fast Learner, of course. But as you can see, there are almost no zombies along the roads. The only exception being occasionally you'll get a pack, a wandering pack, which it's very rare but always worth fighting because almost always one zombie in that pack will be a loot pinata or a loot goblin, depending on what terminology you like to use, and they can come with backpacks full of survival gear and books and all that sort of stuff. But generally the only zombies you'll find are running around car accidents, and these are actually good too because cars give us a place to sleep. And yeah, while we can sleep on the road and feel fairly safe about it because there are no zombies around, we would rather get a comfortable night's sleep and get rid of our tiredness than just go from ridiculously tired to very tired and wake up with a sore neck. Anyway, if you've got other ideas on viable strategies for surviving the long term, please feel free to leave a note in the comments. I'm sure other people would love to hear alternative ideas to just foraging. But this is the one that I've gone for, and I've tried a lot of them. Not all of them, to be fair, but a lot. Anyway, on that note, as you can see, I'm ready to start pushing into the farmlands. I'm going to wait for morning, and then the fighting begins again. Hopefully you found some useful info in this video. If you got any questions, please do feel free to ask, and I promise to get back to you before too long. And otherwise, good luck with your own survival efforts. And yeah, maybe when they come out with multiplayer, you'll see me around Knox County somewhere. Till then, see ya.